Oh, come on. You can't be this dense. Or did you really think I'd be alone for the better part of the year? Now, before we start, take a second to subscribe to our channel and click on the notifications bell so you never miss out on our new stories. Jules and Simon had been married for 12 years and had 2 sons, Ethan and Leo. They started dating back in college and decided to get married soon after graduation. They were both aspiring lawyers and wanted to build their careers before starting a family. However, as luck would have it, Jules got pregnant by accident, and since they wanted to start a family eventually, they decided to keep the baby. While Jules took a year off work to take care of the baby, Simon worked hard to provide for his growing family and quickly climbed up the career ladder. Even though Jules was always very ambitious, she enjoyed being a stay-at-home mom much more than she expected. Thus, Jules and Simon decided that it would be a good idea to have another child, and then Jules would start working on her career when they both got a bit older. Everything seemed to go according to plan, except for one thing. Jules realized that she didn't want to go to work, especially when both kids started kindergarten. She enjoyed her carefree life with her yoga classes and brunches with her mom friends. At that point, Simon was earning enough to provide a comfortable life for his family and didn't really mind that Jules never got back on track with her career. Life seemed pretty perfect to him. He had a beautiful wife who was always there for him, home-cooked meals, and happy, healthy kids. Then came a breakthrough in Simon's career. He was offered a job as an in-house lawyer with an international corporation. It was a dream job with only one downside. He'd have to spend a lot of time traveling. He was seriously considering rejecting the offer, but Jules convinced him that it was the right move. "Honey, what are you afraid of? It's not like you're moving away forever. You'd still come home, and you'll work out of the local office most of the time. We can survive a couple of months a year apart." "Are you sure?" Simon sounded skeptical. "I've heard so many stories of families being broken up by exactly this kind of thing." "We're not those families. We love each other. We trust each other. Or don't you trust me?" "Of course I trust you. I'm just worried." "So what's the problem then?" "Just think of everything we'll be able to afford with the kind of pay raise you'll get at this job. It'll be all worth it." Simon felt somewhat suspicious and hurt about how eager his wife seemed for him to take the job that would keep him away for at least a couple of months a year. He couldn't understand when his wife turned into this materialistic person who put money before everything else. But he brushed off those thoughts, focusing on the fact that his job would help him provide his boys with the best education possible. Thus started Simon and Jules' long-distance relationship. All seemed well at first. Simon made sure to never go away for longer than 2 weeks at a time. They talked on the phone every day, and Jules made sure to send him pictures and little videos of how they spent their days. However, as time went by, they got more and more used to being apart, while Simon's job became more and more demanding, keeping him away from home for longer periods of time. Nevertheless, he still managed to make it home for all the important dates, such as birthdays and anniversaries. Simon and Jules always made plans for their wedding anniversary, making sure to find a way to spend the day with just the two of them. This year, however, it seemed that Jules forgot all about it, but Simon didn't mind. He decided to surprise his wife with a weekend getaway. He was supposed to be away for the entire month, but he took some personal days and managed to fly back home. He made arrangements with the babysitter and booked a hotel for them, hoping to spend some quality time with his wife. He arrived at noon and went straight home to surprise his wife, only stopping to get flowers on his way. However, as soon as he opened the front door, he knew that something was wrong. The house felt different. Simon couldn't pinpoint what it was, but he knew something bad had happened. He went into the kitchen and saw 2 empty coffee cups on the table. Then he heard some noise coming from the bedroom. His heart was pounding in his chest as he walked up to the door and opened it. Sure enough, his wife was in bed with her yoga instructor, Derek. "Happy anniversary," Simon said, and threw the flowers at his wife. She shrieked and jumped out of bed. Having put a robe on, She immediately started trying to come up with a bunch of lame excuses. But then she stopped, calmed down, and said, "Oh, come on. You can't be this dense. Or did you really think I'd be alone for the better part of the year?" Simon was lost for words. Meanwhile, Jules's affair partner got dressed and ran out the door without as much as goodbye. The world swam as Simon backed out of the bedroom. Jules' cavalier response, that cold, calculating dismissal of their vows, echoed in his head. He stumbled to the kitchen, collapsing into a chair, the two forgotten coffee mugs mocking him. Fury threatened to consume him, but a stronger emotion bubbled up, a fierce protectiveness for his sons. He wouldn't let Jules's infidelity unravel their lives. Simon took a deep breath and straightened his resolve. He wanted revenge, but even more than that, he wanted to make sure his boys didn't have to grow up in a home with a woman with such corrupt morals. He discreetly called Sarah, their reliable babysitter, a young woman studying psychology. Simon's voice was strained as he inquired about the yoga instructor's visits. Sarah didn't want to answer his questions at first, but then she burst into tears and told Simon everything she knew. Apparently, the affair had been going on for a couple of years, and Jules often used Sarah to make sure the boys didn't find out about it. Sarah's confirmation was a blow, but it fortified his purpose. He ended the call, got up, and left the house, his mind racing with a plan. The next morning, Simon came back and confronted Jules. Unable to maintain her bravado, Jules crumbled under his questions and accusations. She started crying and begging for forgiveness, but Simon knew there was no coming back from this. "Think of what you've done," he said finally, his low tone cutting deeper than a shout. "You haven't just betrayed me, Jules. You've neglected our children, prioritized your own pleasure over their well-being. I was lonely. I thought I could handle being away from you for so long, but I turned out to be weaker than I expected. It started off as a friendship. I just needed someone to talk to. I don't even know how we ended up sleeping together." Jules's words rang hollow. The damage was done. The trust was shattered beyond repair. Simon knew this marriage was beyond saving. That afternoon, Simon met with a divorce lawyer, a woman known for her fierceness and unwavering support for fathers. Her name, Amelia Moore, held a quiet power. Simon laid out his case, his voice calm despite the storm within. Amelia's sharp gaze softened slightly when she learned about Ethan and Leo. Her advice was blunt: fight for custody. Jules, predictably, balked. Threats of a messy battle and accusations of Simon trying to punish her filled their initial communications. Simon, however, remained resolute. With Amelia's guidance, he started preparing. He documented his involvement in the children's lives, from school plays and doctor's appointments to bedtime stories and weekend outings. Sure, he was away for work a lot, but he took care of all the family's finances, and more importantly, he provided a letter from his firm, stating that from then on, he would no longer be traveling for work. The evidence spoke for itself. He was a loving, dedicated father, not just a paycheck provider. Meanwhile, Simon ensured Ethan and Leo, both bewildered by the sudden change in their parents' dynamic, felt secure. He talked to them honestly, using age-appropriate language. He emphasized his love for them, assuring them that nothing would change that. They were his priority. The legal battle was a grueling process. Jules, spurred by anger and fueled by a desire to maintain her comfortable lifestyle, contested everything. However, Amelia expertly countered each accusation. She exposed Jules' self-centered priorities, using the evidence collected by the private investigator Simon hired. The turning point came during a heated argument in court. Jules, on the stand, launched into a tirade about Simon neglecting their family for his career. Amelia, however, calmly presented a record of Jules' spending habits, such as her exorbitant online purchases, lavish spa treatments, and hotel stays, with her lover, no less. It was a stark contrast to Simon's frugal lifestyle that prioritized the children's needs. The judge, a stern woman with steely eyes, saw through Jules's facade. She recognized the emotional neglect, the blatant disregard for the sanctity of marriage. In the final ruling, Simon received primary custody of Ethan and Leo. Jules was only granted supervised visitation rights. The initial days after the verdict were an adjustment. Leaving for school without saying goodbye to their mother was difficult for Ethan and Leo. But Simon showered them with love and reassurance. He enrolled them in a grief counseling program to help them navigate the emotional turmoil. Slowly, a new normal emerged. Meanwhile, he didn't forget about his wife's affair partner. A man who'd sleep with another man's wife was a lowlife in his eyes and deserved punishment just as much as his wife did. Moreover, Simon's private investigator provided him with evidence that Derek had relationships with several other women, all of whom attended his classes and had wealthy husbands. Simon was determined to expose him, and he did, in the most brutal and hilarious way. He paid for several big board advertisements around the city. Each had a picture of Derek and a different woman, but the same text: "Can't take care of your wife's needs. Send her to my yoga studio, and I will do that for you." The amount of backlash that aid campaign got was incredible. Derek didn't just have to close his studio, but also move to another city in the hopes that he'd be able to start anew once the online slandering ended. Meanwhile, Simon and the boys got used to their new normal, where Simon became their primary caretaker and their mom only came over for supervised visits. It wasn't all that different, in reality, since it was their babysitter, Sarah, who'd always been taking care of them most of the time anyway. From then on, life continued at a steady pace for Simon and the sons, while Jules struggled to find herself in her new reality, and all on her own. What do you guys think? Was Simon justified in his actions? Was he right about fighting for custody of his sons? Or would they be better off staying with their mother? Let us know in the comments. Also, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends.